Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Hanging with the Fabians. My name is CD. This is my lovely bride, Melody.
Hey, 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 hey.
She is the melody to this CD. And we are in a new set, as you guys can see, and we're having a wonderful time. We've got something greatly in store for you guys. Without further ado, we want to introduce to you our dear friend, Vanessa Cruz.
What's going on, y'all? Happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, I'm so thankful. Me and Vanessa, we go way back.
Yep.
All the way to Chicago. You were born and raised in Chicago?
Born and raised.
Born and raised. Chi-town in the house.
Sorry.
And you're in
Northwest Georgia.
Northwest Georgia.
Georgia.
But you don't have an accent or anything.
We don't.
We don't.
You think it's going to develop?
I could develop
You
one,
might.
I might have could.
For all our Southerners listening, we just love your accents.
We love you.
I do.
Well, I actually am from Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, you were born there.
And my accent pops up every time I go back to the South.
No way.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he
Yes.
was born in Tennessee.
Every time I go back to the South, it pops up.
When he's with his New Yorker family, he starts talking like
That
he's
starts
from New
to pop up
York.
because I spend a lot of time there, too.
Okay.
Like the other day, I was on 42nd Street, and I'm like, babe, why are you talking like that? And then I start talking like that.
I don't sound like that. That's her thing.
I do have many accents, so.
Yeah.
But,
Tell them your British accent.
well, Vanessa, we're just so happy for you to be here. I was born in Liverpool. I don't know if you knew that. Liverpool, England.
Did not know that about you.
I was adopted by a Puerto Rican family. I did that because I went to Moody Bible Institute, and I did that to the students, and people believed it.
No.
They were like, that's so dope. You're Puerto Rican, but you were adopted by an English family. I'm like, yes. It was just so interesting because I'm Puerto Rican, but, my family, is from England.
They did not.
Yeah, they were like,
Oh, yeah.
for like a few hours. It was so fun. And then I was like, I'm lying, y'all. And they're like, no, we loved your accent.
Oh, man.
So sorry if this Liverpool accent is not correct, but yes.
Yeah, I don't know what region that might
I don't
be.
know
Right.
how it really sounds.
How the Liverpool's. But we are in our second season.
Yes.
And in this season, Vanessa, we've been focusing on God's power and redemption.
Yeah.
And we are excited to share this space with you, and that you might share some of your story of God's power and redemption in your life, because we know that it has been a wild and crazy road from the jump of your life.
Yeah.
And so, we just want to spend some time just hearing your testimony, allowing us to maybe ask a few questions and see where the Holy Spirit might lead you. Because there's a number of people out there who need to hear and need to be inspired again, that God sees them, especially when they don't think he's around or cares for them at all. And I know you can relate to that. But then inspiring that sense that they can still hold on and see that in due time things can and will turn around, even though there's still pain to have to wrestle with and work through. And so living in that tension is not very easy, and it's not often discussed. And so we want to just spend some time there. So
Yeah, let's go.
yeah,
Yes.
let's do it.
And just as you're sharing your story, we want y'all to know that you are a therapist. You are a mama. So I wanted to, as people know that you're coming from that heart and that background.
Right.
Trauma informed.
Right. Trauma specialist.
Yes.
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 Tell us some more
tell
about
us.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the clinical work that I do, I've been counseling for over a decade now.
Wow.
And I originally, going into school, I was like, man, I just want to work with youth. That's all I want to do, youth. And God, just as I began to counsel folks, he gave me a heart for adults. He gave me a heart for marriages. But I really felt like God kept bringing trauma work. And trauma work is still fairly new. There's a lot of discoveries that are unfolding about how to treat trauma. And within the past 10 years or so, I mean, new modalities, new ways of treating trauma have been developed that are kind of groundbreaking. So
Wow.
it's been exciting work. Yeah.
Wow.
Man.
10 years, over 10 years now.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
What made you want to get into that work?
I'm not sure that I necessarily had the desire to do the work. It was a gifting that was called out of me, out of serving in my local church. So I was, I was just so excited to just be about and around the things of the Lord, because I got saved 24 years old. I lived a whole lot of life before I was saved. So when I got saved, I was fresh out of the Marine Corps. I served a 4-year term during 9/11. Thank you.
Service.
So I just had I just loved to serve. And our church at the time was looking for volunteers. And so I was just volunteering everywhere, learning. And there was this ministry called intercessory prayer. And they would meet up on Saturdays. And I'm talking about early, like 5, 6 a.m. And they would get up and they taught me how to war and how to just press into God's presence and just tarry there for a while and be able to pray with authority. And the pastor there started seeing something in me. She's like, hey, we do deliverance counseling. We were primarily through this thing called Steps to Freedom in Christ by Neil T. Anderson. She had me read all the books. She's like, hey, I want you to come and sit in on some sessions with me. And so I started there, just kind of biblical counseling and like deliverance counseling. And so from there, at that point, I was just this government chick. I thought my dream was FBI. In the midst of that, I was actually interviewing with the CIA and the FBI at the same time.
Wow.
I had already made it to the 3rd phase with FBI. And I had won some type of some type of goal for the female division of the FBI for amount of push-ups or something like that. Because I was fresh out of the Marine Corps, so I was like looking good, feeling good.
You still look good, mama.
Yeah, and so I was like, this is my dream for myself. I was pursuing justice for myself, and I wanted to get bad guys. And for me, justice looked like becoming the person who gets the bad guys. And so here I am, 3rd phase in the FBI, and I was working for the Department of Defense at the time. And one day, my clearance disappeared from the system.
What?
Yeah, and they said, well, this has never happened. Something like this has never happened before.
Never happened.
Never. And so what that means is I can't literally step foot into the facility.
Wow.
Okay, with no clearance, I cannot be privy to all of those.
Yeah.
The intel that requires a certain level of clearance.
Right.
So the clearance disappears from the system and I just have to go on unemployment. And so that's how I started.
Well, so that's how you lost your job.
That's how I lost my
Because your
job.
clearance disappeared.
Literally.
So you try to show up to the DOD.
Right.
And you can't come in. And until we figure that out, you don't got no job no more. And to this day, you have no clue why.
No clue why.
Well.
And it takes 2 years to get a clearance, up to 2 years to get re-cleared. Because they do interviews with people that and all that. And so it was easy. It was an easy transition for me because I carried my clearance from the Marine Corps into the Department of Defense.
Wow.
And so I'm looking for a job heavy for 6 months, and I'm looking for, government agency work. But God opened doors at a social worker agency.
Okay.
Never knew, didn't know, understand. All I knew is I was going to go and do work in the compliance department. So work in the compliance department, there's social workers everywhere. They're a different breed. Okay. And one day I had said something to a social worker and she was like, I had said something like, you're not looking yourself today. Like, are you feeling okay? She was like, Vanessa, she said, have you ever thought about being a therapist? And I was like, I haven't. And when she left, I turned around and Googled what a therapist was because I had no idea what a therapist was. So I come to find out, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like what I'm doing.
Right.
Like
at the church and stuff.
Yeah, at the church with biblical counseling, but there's a psychological component. And I still had the GI Bill that was essentially would pay for my education.
Yeah.
So I could get a whole master's.
Thank you, Jesus.
Because of my time served. And so
You already had a bachelor's.
I got my bachelor's while I was in the Marine Corps. So I was a Marine during the day, and I was getting my bachelor's at night.
What did you get a bachelor's in?
Criminology.
Okay.
Wow.
Because remember, I'm thinking my trajectory is I'm gonna become an FBI. I'm gonna be Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
Up in here.
Wow.
Okay, Tomb Raider up in here, and we gonna get these bad guys
Yeah.
because I didn't have a sense of justice. I didn't have, because of my childhood trauma and things that we're gonna definitely touch base
Yes.
on. I didn't have that sense of justice, of completedness, of feeling like I was heard, and I wanted to make sure that others didn't experience that.
Wow.
So that's where that fervency came from to want to become an agent.
I see.
Yeah, but now I'm an agent for the Lord.
That's right.
Hey. Wow, so that's how you got into being a counselor.
Right.
That's
Therapist.
impressive.
So I know this is deep, and if y'all got kids in the room, might want to make sure they scoot on out. Your testimony is deep. You've been through a lot of pain, and you talked a lot about, that justice, that fire in you of wanting that justice. Do you mind talking a little bit about that, like growing up, what happened, what made that fire in you to want to help people?
Yeah. So I grew up in the inner city of Chicago. For folks that are from Chicago, I mean North Side, Clark and Montrose, near Wrigleyville, and it was not. Wrigleyville now, beautiful area. Back then, I mean, it was hood. There was a lot of gang members. I mean, the Kings just stayed in that area. So walking to school, you were kind of trying to be recruited and all of that. So that was sort of the atmosphere. And then within our home, I mean, everything looked good from the outside, but I mean, it was definitely a DV situation. There was a lot of domestic violence issues.
In your home.
In my own home. Yeah. And so growing up, I knew from the get-go that I was afraid of my father. Not a healthy fear, not a reverent fear.
Yeah.
I mean like a traumatic, violent fear that I had associated with my father. I was always scared of him.
Wow.
To the point, like if we heard the keys at the door, we jumped. Both my mother and I knew we needed to go and look busy. So it was that kind of atmosphere. And then I would say, and it was very abusive.
Wow.
Both toward my mother and I.
And to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Physically.
You were physically abused too.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, physically abused.
You had siblings?
So my I have one sibling, and she wasn't born. We're 7 years apart.
Okay. So this wasn't happening in that season.
Right. And I mean, it was kind of the same situation. I don't know why, and it's not possible for me to really come to understand why at this point either. But he just had major anger issues, and he immigrated from Mexico, so there was a lot of that machismo culture that was brought into the home, where I mean we had to ask permission for everything. My mom wanted to cut her hair, she had to ask permission. I couldn't cut my hair. There was a lot of oppressive, demeaning roles that were present within the home.
Wow.
And he also just sheltered me, but not in a healthy, protective way. Like, okay, we're going to shelter you from the culture because we want to maintain innocence. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, it was kind of like, you can't have friends. You cannot go outside.
Wow.
You cannot bring people into the home. So there was a lot of that.
Isolation.
Yes. That sort of controlling, manipulative behavior. And so, yeah, I felt growing up, I knew, okay, something's wrong. I'll always remember this time during, I want to say maybe it might have been first grade. It might have been kindergarten or first grade. And I had to go to school with a black eye.
Wow.
And I knew to say that I fell down the stairs.
Oh.
But for some odd reason, like a kid maybe asked me about it, and I was like, oh, actually, my father did this. This is really what happened, but don't say anything. And they ended up telling the teacher, and they, after school, I'm getting picked up, and they're like,
Wow.
"Sweetie, can you stay here? We're going to talk to mom," and she just backed up the original story of I fell down the stairs. I was like, wow.
She didn't come for defend
I was
you.
conscious of, oh, okay, we protect my father.
I see.
And we protect this image that needs to be portrayed.
Wow. Wow. Which is so painful.
That's an early age to process such adult themes, betrayal and lying, loss of respect for your parent. That's a high amount of emotional energy to expend.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So then did it keep going from there?
So, I mean, yeah, the abuse continued. And as you get older, you start to process things differently. Like as I've become older, I was like, wait a second. The home we lived in, it was like a 2-flat. There was family, it was nothing but family in that home. We had family living beneath us. And I'm like, man, nobody tried to help me.
So they could hear it.
Oh,
They
they
knew
could
it.
definitely hear it.
Nobody said anything.
They could definitely hear the abuse. Like I could remember, like I'm a parent now. So it's kind of hard to wrap your head around doing some of the things that happened to me to a child.
Yeah.
And they were like strange forms of torture almost.
Oh, my
Because it wasn't
goodness.
like, oh, you peed the pants or you peed your pants and so you're getting, a pow pow or something like that. I mean, these were like, okay, you're almost going to kill me here.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Or, just like I remember opening up. Back in the day, we used to make this juice on these cylinders. You would crack it open. It was like a frozen
Yes.
something, and you put it
Like
in the
the
pitcher,
concentrate, yeah.
concentrated. You add water, and I guess I had popped it accidentally, and it sprayed all over the kitchen table, and like I flew across the room. Wow! From that, there was no words were said. I just flew across the room, and I knew like, okay, so I have to make sure that I behave perfectly.
In front of that.
There is no room for imperfections. There's no room for mistakes.
So for clarity, you flew across the room because he hit you.
Right.
Yeah.
And how old were you?
Maybe 7.
Wow. Man.
Hard times.
Yes.
Are you okay recalling this?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah.
So the
So
abuse.
this is your upbringing,
Yeah, kept
Yeah.
going, and the things just keep getting worse and worse with your dad.
Yes. So at around, I want to say 10 years old is when I distinctly remember there was a thunderstorm outside. And I was always afraid of thunder. And so my father had came into my room to console me and like just it seemed like to comfort me. And so he's in my bed and, he's just hugging me and he, like, oh, okay, it's okay. But it was also the first time that he touched me inappropriately.
Wow.
And I think, and so I want to caution the viewers here, like if you are, this is a trigger warning. If you're starting to feel your body tense up, if you're starting to feel like memories for you are coming up that you're not ready to process, go ahead and pause this and get with the Lord, get with your therapist and process whatever is coming up for you. And then come back if you feel like it's safe for you to come back. Because I am going to get a little detailed here. So I think the hardest part about that moment is that he asked me permission.
Wow.
He said, can I put my hand here?
And you're afraid.
Well, I'm also not sure what that meant.
Means. Oh my God.
And I was like, okay. Again, not understanding what that meant and what that would ultimately entail for our relationship going forward. And so there's this controlling, manipulative sense that he has about him. And now there's a jealousy that's beginning to form for me.
Wow.
That's entirely perverse.
Wow.
And so what that meant on top of this abusive atmosphere is now he doesn't like, as time is going on and this behavior continues, like my father is just like always in my bedroom and nobody's thinking twice about this. And again, as I get older, I'm like, how is this not a red flag?
Yeah.
Why wasn't anything done? Right. And so there's always these unanswered questions that I'll just never have answers to.
Wow.
And so things come to a head when I'm in high school.
So it's continued.
So yeah, this continues from
up-
that point forward.
Yeah, I was
Okay.
For
up
years.
until I was 16.
Oh,
I'm having to live this double life.
with your dad.
Yes, with my biological father.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we could pause here, I mean,
Yeah.
I think looking back, I realize, I mean, a lot of what the issues that we experience in our adulthood are so linked to our experiences as a child, as an adolescent, right? And I mean, I had just major identity issues.
Yeah.
Because somebody's telling you, I couldn't even listen to my own kind of music. I couldn't develop my own taste in music because that was controlled. I didn't know how I liked to dress because
That was control.
that was controlled. I had some freedoms. I was able to, like, I was really big into sports. So I played softball and, but that was like about it. If it had anything to do with school or education or something like that, I had some freedoms. But yeah, so we're talking about depressive symptoms that I was constantly managing, anxiety because I wasn't sure when he was going to
Show up.
when he was going to
And you
get
never told
angry.
your mom?
I mean, about
Your dad?
the sexual abuse?
Yes.
No,
No.
because there were threats.
There were
Okay.
threats.
There were threats because at this point my sister was born and I'm thinking, I mean, she was still a baby and there was, if you ever say something about this, like our family's going to be ruined.
And you're going to ruin it.
Right. Wow. I mean, yeah.
And the physical abuse was still ongoing too.
Oh yeah.
You're having to deal with violence in the home, which is one kind of fear, and then a sexual abuse, which is very confusing because it's intimate, to say the least. But you can imagine that there's an innate sense that it's supposed to be connecting or sensual, or I don't know. I don't know if how was that for you? Like, was it just all confusing? Was it all fear? Was it all binding? I'm sorry. I appreciate. I know your story, but we're talking about it in depth.
Yeah.
And for those who are
New.
listening as well, just trying to wrap our minds around this.
Yeah. Incest and the topic of molestation. Usually these discussions are happening in therapy, right? Behind closed doors. But I feel like, I'm willing to be as transparent as possible, as that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because I've learned that actually this happens so much more often than you can imagine. I used to feel like I was an alien and an outlier, but no, this is happening more than you can imagine.
Wow.
So I would say that my body learned to dissociate. And what I mean by dissociate is like you just stop. There is a disconnect from your body where you can become numb to sensations and completely check out
Wow.
Sure.
from the experience.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a common, I mean, that's part of our fight or flight and freeze nervous system response
Wow.
when you're in danger. And it is to help you survive.
Wow.
And so my body and my brain did what it needed to do to help me survive. And I just checked out.
Yeah.
And
I just, as a father, I think I'm, like Melody said earlier, this is good for people who maybe feel alone, and you're giving voice.
Yeah.
And you're helping to say, hey, listen, it's not right, and you're not alone, unfortunately, in the context of the frequency. And you're a therapist. I'm training to be a therapist. We want to encourage people to seek the therapy, and we're part of this session is to expose it and to ground it, and then to still say, come get therapy.
and for those who are, God forbid, you even suspect your child is being touched in any way by anyone in your family,
Don't
even
ignore
if
it.
there are threats, we gotta report this. We
Don't ignore it.
gotta
Yep.
get help.
Yes.
We gotta get the police. We've got, it's scary and it's like, but we have to protect our kids, And I'm sure your mom was just so afraid.
Oh,
So she just felt
well,
trapped.
She was frozen too.
well, she was experiencing her own set of trauma responses and symptoms. So I'm sure that she might have suspected something, but didn't feel the freedom to even say anything. It was very much, let's not say or do anything to upset the status quo in the house. And so, yeah. And there's still some healing that needs to occur on her end. Because, I mean, I still have to pick up from my story where it left off, right? But when everything essentially just like blew up.
So when did it blow up?
Okay, so I'm 16. I'm going to Lane Tech,
Lane Tech, okay.
LT. So like I'm loving going to the school. 4,000 student count, body count. I mean, it's like amazing.
Huge school.
Huge school.
Body
And-
count meaning school count, because you
Sorry,
may not
body
know,
count,
we're in this
no,
world now.
Right.
Different now.
Okay, right.
Not
Right.
partners.
Not
Oh,
partners.
my goodness.
Just 40.
4,000
people at the
students
school.
Students at the
attended
Right.
school.
There's not a body count of.
Okay, so
4,000.
you know that like cliques abound,
Yes.
right? I
Yeah.
didn't know where I fit in. So there's
Yeah.
all these identity issues that I'm navigating and I'm trying to like manage, right? And so I meet a guy. I mean, that's bound to happen. I'm a young girl. There are young men. Hormones are raging.
Right.
And I remember I was like, listen, these are my hours of operation. This is when you call. This is when you don't call.
Wow. Right.
What do you think happened?
He called at the wrong time. Wow.
He didn't listen. Okay. Oh, man. So he calls. I see back then, okay, I'm going to date myself, but the caller ID was not attached to the phone. It was a separate entity in which you hooked up to the phone.
Which shows the number.
Yes, which showed
For
the
those
number.
who are before this time.
This was before these.
Before cell phones.
Okay. And I saw his number show up and I was like, oh my goodness.
And Dad's home.
And Dad is home. And I never called him Dad. He was always
Okay.
my father.
All
My
right.
father was home. And he picked up. My boyfriend hung up. Now, maybe the average father would have been like, oh, nothing to think of. No, my father, when I went to school the next day, called 411 to get the address of that number that hung up. And then when I came home, it's like, hey, we're going to go see a client. normal business. Okay. My father was an entrepreneur. He owned a very well-established construction company that did work on houses of the year. I mean, he was an excellent contractor. Knew no English coming here, went to Truman College, learned English, and I mean, created the best business you can think of.
Wow.
And so I'm like, okay, we're going to go see a client, right? He's acting a little funny. We're driving west. And he's like, you remember that phone call yesterday? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
You're like, you're ready.
You already know.
He's like, yeah, so I reverse looked up that number. And we're going to pay your friend a little visit right now.
Oh my God.
He said it like that, your friend.
Yes. And he's driving me to old boy's house.
Is your mom there too?
No, it's just him and I in the truck. I'm shaking. His voice sounds ominous. I already know I'm in for it. And he was calm. And that's how I knew. Like he was just, I was just quiet. I was scared. And everything, when we arrived to his house, which I had never been to, when I say boyfriend, we hadn't even kissed.
Right. Like you just met him.
Yeah. Like that was it. I had no freedom to do anything otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So everything from that point on is in clips.
Okay.
I have very fragmented memories about what happened.
Wow.
Oh.
But I remember that he knocks on the door. His father answers the door. My father is in his father's face, and his father seemed like, in my memory, he was like 6 feet tall. I mean, this was a big man, and my father was not big, and he is like just railing, I mean, just screaming about how his son is doing things to me and accusing, like my father obviously was thinking the absolute worst of what was happening between us. My boyfriend wasn't even at home. They're like, the father calls his wife to go get my then boyfriend. As soon as he walks into the room, my father's filled with jealousy, backhands me in front of his parents. Blood is streaming out of my nose. I just remember looking down and just seeing blood dripping down out of my nose. And then I don't remember everything else that was exchanged, but we get back into now this is from Central to Clark. That is a long drive for those of you. I mean, that's like, I want to say 3 or 4 miles, maybe.
About 4 miles.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 or 5 miles.
Yeah. So.
And you're going like it's street. You're not
On
driving
street.
on the freeway.
Right. And my father almost killed me on that drive back home.
Oh my God.
He ripped out about 75% of my hair out of my head.
Oh my God.
I mean, he was beating me to death in that car. It was so bad. I remember somebody in a car next to me. I could hear her saying, "Is she okay?" Because my face was pressed up against the window. I was trying to and I was just trapped. I couldn't do anything. I remember imagining just opening the door and rolling, just to roll myself out into the street.
Wow.
But I didn't have the courage to do it. So I get back home and I just remember my mom saying, "What happened?" But didn't do anything. Again,
didn't do anything.
Nobody to come to my aid.
Oh my God.
So I'm in ROTC at Lane, and they didn't keep me from school. They let me go to school the next day, banged up, bruised, swollen, and especially in ROTC, you got to wear your hair slicked back off the collar. I mean, I look messed up.
Oh my God.
My head is so tender. And everybody's like, "Man, what happened to you?" What do you think I said?
Got in a fight?
I fell down the stairs.
Were you guys in ROTC together?
I don't think so.
No.
I graduated in 98.
I graduated 01, so we just missed each other, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you guys had 1 year together.
Okay.
And I was in gym at that point.
Okay.
I dropped out.
Right.
Wow.
You didn't drop out of high school.
No, sorry, dropped out of ROTC.
Yeah.
I graduated, y'all. Okay. Wow.
So
Nobody.
there was one friend who didn't believe me. Turns out to be a pastor's daughter.
Wow.
And I remember I was, my father's a pastor. She didn't believe my story. I get called the intercom. I'm in class. The intercom's like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and need, Vanessa to come down to the office. Was the guidance counselor was Chris
I don't remember
there at the time? Okay. Well, anyway, I come down there. DCFS is already there.
Wow.
But here's the thing. As I'm walking down, I had an out of body sort of moment as I'm walking into the guidance counselor's office, and I hear, "This is my doing." And it wasn't a audible. It wasn't audible. It was a knowing. It was like I just all of a sudden knew. I heard
Like,
and
this
knew
is
at
my
the same
fault.
time. It was a supernatural moment. But I'm not.
This is my doing.
This is my
this is
Okay,
my
okay.
doing. Not her
Not this
doing.
is my doing.
Right.
This
This is my
Right.
doing. So I'm hearing that, but here I'm not a believer yet.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
At this point, I'm just, I was going to mass every once in a while with family, but I always had drawing to the light.
Okay.
I always had like, man, I love God. I had old Catholic posters and rosaries posted up on my door and things like that. Like I always had an affection for God, but I didn't know God.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so I walk in and I have this sense essentially that everything that's occurring and transpiring in this moment is from God.
Wow.
And I remember that it was a season where I had thought my first suicidal ideation, I would say ideation because I didn't have a plan, but because he was starting to say things that were real funny, like, oh, when you're married, like we're still going to be together, and when you have, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just felt so trapped, and I felt like, how am I ever? Like, is this going to be the rest of my life?
Wow.
And that's when I remember starting to feel like I didn't want to live anymore. And that is when I started, I feel like it was all in conjunction, like everything happened around that same time. So I step into the office, the Polaroid is out, they're taking pictures, and they remove me from my home.
Wow.
So just pause real quick on, reflecting on moments where this is the first time you've had a suicidal ideation. I know that some of our viewers may have wrestled with suicidal ideation. So just a moment for some psychotherapy, you know, because
therapy moment.
Yeah, you mentioned you had a moment where you were like, it was ideation because you didn't have a plan yet. So we kind of categorize like intent, depth for suicide. Thoughts and whatnot, suicidal thoughts. And so ideation, meaning just entertaining the thoughts. Is my life worth anything? Does anybody care about me? I don't want to live anymore. I should just be gone.
Right.
And those are just thoughts. Those are initial thoughts.
Sure. They're passive thoughts. They're not active.
They're not active.
Right.
When we start thinking about making a plan and or having a mode, which means, so there's a plan, I'm going to do this way, this how, and then there's the means or the mode. I have a gun, I have a rope, I have something that
Pills.
I can use,
Right.
pills, and then attempts where I've actually tried. So you're saying that you had ideation, there was no attempts or plan or mode or anything like that, which is already emotionally difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Suicidal ideation is very common. If you're experiencing anything that is overwhelming emotionally, overwhelming to your nervous system, suicidal ideation is your way of essentially saying, I need to escape this thing.
Right.
So it doesn't even necessarily mean that you want to die. It may not always mean that you want to take your life, but it's your mind's way of saying, I can't take this anymore.
I gotta get out of this.
Right. So if you're experiencing suicidal ideation, it doesn't necessarily mean you want to take your life or that you want to die.
Right.
It just means in this moment, I want to escape this situation.
Yeah, it's a cry for escape. It's a cry for
sure.
help. And so if anybody's feeling that way, and we just kind of discussed the levels there, I think we'll put the
Suicidal hotline.
Suicidal hotline
Yeah.
here in Florida. We'll put it there, and you can reach out.
Nationwide, yeah.
Because if you're having those thoughts If the thoughts are coming, then either circumstantially or the way that we're thinking about our situation feels so entrapping that we can't see any other way out. And I would really encourage you, talk to someone, talk to anybody, because it not only is a level of release, but you're inviting an opportunity to find that way out, to find help. And that's what happened with this pastor's daughter.
Wow.
So there were a number of people that you've shared your situation with. Somebody chose to not believe, right? Nobody's believing me, but in this case, you wanted someone to not believe you,
Right.
the cover story.
Wow.
And thank God the second time around. And how beautiful that even before you've known the Lord, he knows you.
Right.
And he whispers to you, this is of my doing.
Right.
What did that do for you with the mindset that you had? Did it connect as if like, wait, something's changing? Was there a glimmer of hope? Like, what did that have any impact on you just yet?
It did.
Okay.
So at this point, right, all they know about is the physical abuse. And they removed me from my home. And remember, he's very controlling. And at this point, I'm staying with an aunt. And there's a softball sleepover. I would never in a million years had been able to go to attend that, right? But I get to. And my father knows about it. And I get dropped off. And he knows that I'm there. And it just could not contain himself. He was imagining, again, the worst possible things. And he starts to call the girl's house like very late. And he was like being tortured with thoughts that I was doing something with the father or the brother that stayed in that home.
Wow.
It was just
high jealousy.
Yes. I mean, it was just, again, sick, perverse thoughts. I mean, you could almost say, okay, there's something demonic that's present here.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't allow me to sleep over. He comes and gets me at like 2 a.m.
And by law, he's supposed to stay away from you right now.
At this point, he can have access to me. And at this, okay, so they give him a warning. There was a warning.
They only know about the physical. That's why.
This one time.
Right. So he's under some type of like probationary period.
Wow.
And then, but the detectives, there was a police station right next to Lane Tech.
Right.
And my detective that was assigned to me, I'll never forget him, Richard Echeverria. He was amazing and he made me feel so safe. And he would be checking, he would walk over to the school and just sit down with me and be like, all right, how are things going? And I'd be like, man, I was at this sleepover and I really felt like, oh my gosh, I have support. I have somebody who believes me. I have somebody who cares like about what's happening to me. And he's like, okay, well, how did that go? And I was like, man, he came and got me. He started accusing me of doing A, B, and C with the father. And then I remember he looked over to, I guess, another detective, and they were like, Vanessa, we have a feeling that something else is going on here, but we can't do anything about it unless you tell us about it. And so going back to what you said, CD, about like, did that have an impact? Yes, because it was when I heard that, when I had that sense come over me, it filled me with courage.
Wow.
Okay, that's awesome.
And so at that point, right, I remember knowing in that moment, it is like live or die right now. This is
your way of escape.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I remember it was like that kind of moment.
Wow.
Okay.
I wish I had sound effects.
Right. Exactly. It was just like a sober thought right now. Okay. And I remember saying, yes, my father is molesting me. When I tell you, they sprang out of their seats. They moved with quickness.
Wow.
And they said, okay, they started making phone calls. Now, I don't know exactly what happened at home. But my mother told me that, I don't know, all these policemen showed up at the house and they were saying they have a warrant, and you know, that there's a new warrant for him. I guess my father wasn't home at the time, and my mom had contacted him about it. That joker came home when nobody was home, drained the bank accounts, took all the jewelry from the house, and fled to Mexico.
What?
Wow.
So
Wow.
you never saw him while you were in school? Never saw him again in that season?
So I didn't know that had happened, right? But at softball practice, he showed up in the parking lot. Like
So
I
he had
didn't
already
know
done what he'd done.
He had already done what he'd done, and I didn't know about it. And I'm just, you know, I was a pitcher, so I'm pitching, and I just ended up looking to the left, and I see his truck just parked, and it was creepy.
Ooh.
Because I already know that the authorities know he's just parked there looking at me in softball practice. And I start almost having a panic attack. The coach is like, nobody's going to hurt you, Vanessa. Don't worry about it. By the time I get home.
Did they know? Why would they say that?
Well, because
Well, they
I
know.
was.
The school knows.
My coach didn't know exactly what was happening on, but he knew that I was like looking some kind of way.
Okay. So he was just assuring you.
I believe my teachers were aware maybe of what happened, that I was taken away from the home, but I'm not sure they were aware of the second charges that were brought
Okay.
on him. So, because everything happened so fast. It was like practice right after the day that I had said,
Okay.
he's molesting me.
Wow.
And so I was like, why is he just sitting there? And so, and I remember just going home, and my mom was like he's gone, like he's just gone. And we have no money, so he left us completely destitute.
Never heard of him again.
He tried to write letters from Mexico, convincing he wanted my mother to sell the house and send him money from the equity of the home, from the sale of the home.
But she didn't.
She didn't.
She was finally feeling free too, or how did she feel?
She did not handle it well.
Okay.
I would wake up and she would be sleeping on the couch, and I would come home from school and she would be sleeping on the couch.
Wow.
Now your sister's 7 years younger, so she's what, 10, 9, 10 years old?
She was very young, and she got very quiet. She stopped talking for a season
Wow.
because she's, you know, processing the trauma in a different way.
Yeah.
Was she being physically abused too?
She was not,
Wow.
because I made sure. I
absorbed
had
it all.
yes, I had opportunities to leave and run away. I walked to school. I took the bus to school. I had opportunities to run away. But every time I would think about, I was like, no, because what if he starts doing that to my sister?
Wow.
So I would rather absorb that.
To protect her.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay.
You've been through so much, Mama. And I've heard your story, but not in the depths today. And I thank you for sharing. And, you know, sometimes people go, why we got to share this ugly stuff? Like, we don't need to talk about this. But I think it's so important to know where we've come from and what God has brought us through.
Yes. Because God can do it. He can do so much. I mean, I'm here now.
Yes, you are.
Telling your story.
Right.
What was your journey of healing? Salvation and healing.
Ooh, Jesus. Okay, so, you know, I remember that DCFS told my family, highly recommended, okay, hey, this is where she should get counseling. These are the specialists that we usually send folks to. That was never done for me. They never sent me to counseling. And so I began to cope, find my own ways to cope.
Yeah.
So I became a pothead. I started skipping school a lot, going to daytimes. And back in the day, that meant you not going to school and going to a party instead. Daytimes. And we just would get drunk, and we would drink, we would smoke blunts and drink 40s.
Wow.
And that's how me and other disenfranchised youth would cope and get through life.
Wow.
Was finding community with each other. And I remember, as you know, when you would get drunk and stuff, right? Like they call it like liquid courage, because you would just start to share, like you would just hear everybody's
stuff.
stories,
Yeah.
what they're going through, and hard parents who were academically putting pressure on, you would just hear it all. And so I started smoking a lot. I mean, I would be at the bus station, at the bus stop, smoking a blunt. I would, just getting high all the time. I almost didn't graduate high school because my grades tanked. And but again, I had this dream to become an FBI agent. And my best friend and I were like, let's go to the military. And she was like, man, I want to be a Marine. And I was like, well, listen, that's a good thing, because the FBI's look favorably on Marines. And, they're Quantico, Virginia, and headquarters and all that are next to each other. And we were like, let's do it. Let's go through the buddy system. So it was one of the worst and best things that ever happened to me. So in the meantime of that happening, right, my mother's still having a hard time with everything. And so I have to get a worker's permit and start working to support the family.
Wow.
Before that, I actually had to steal food in order to. So again, my healing and everything, all the support that was not even on the back burner. It just wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
And so I have to rise up and start having to essentially support the family until my mother could get back on her feet. And so by the time I leave to the Marine Corps, I mean, she had some things together.
Yeah.
But I leave June of 2001, and I'm in boot camp. Everything's going well. Then 9/11 happens while I'm in boot camp. And so...
And you're in the Marines.
Yeah, in the Marines. So I'm not a combat veteran.
Okay.
I did have orders to go to Bahrain, but my CO was like, no, I want you to finish your bachelor's. And they did away with those papers,
Orders.
with that assignment.
Wow.
And that doesn't always happen, by the way.
So you were going to go to Bahrain. You had papers.
I had
for
the
Bahrain.
orders. The orders already came in.
The orders already came in. Your CO nixed them.
Yes.
And
which is war.
which would have been war.
Yeah.
And so you think that was God?
I would say that, I mean, looking back, I mean, who knows, right? But that was some type of favor. That doesn't happen for most people, right?
Yeah.
But
Sure.
I could venture to say, yeah, that have been the Lord protecting me.
Being able to complete your bachelor's set you up so that you can go and get a master's.
Right.
I mean, obviously you could have decided to go get your bachelor's then your master's, but it's already set up.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you have to memorize the Marines Creed and all that? I suppose you did.
Once upon a time, yes. Do I
Yeah.
remember it now? No.
Yeah. So when I became a Christian, I learned about the Marines Creed. I tried to join the military 3 or 4 different times, and the Lord
What?
told me not to.
Okay.
And it's frustrating. But anyway, I wish I had done ROTC when I didn't even know that was a thing in college and high school.
Yeah.
But I learned the Marines Creed about the rifle. This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And so I changed it to the Christian's Creed, and everywhere it says rifle, I put Bible.
Yeah.
And they rhyme, so it worked out perfect.
Yeah.
And then when it got to the point of like warfare, and it says something like, my enemy is trying to kill me, but I will shoot first, and my aim is true, something of that nature, and
Yeah.
I will kill him first. I put that in terms of like the enemy, right? I put that in terms of spiritual warfare, and I had that memorized. I wish I remember, but this is my Bible. There are many like it, but this one is mine. And there's this one part where it's like I must master it, or it must end something. Anyhow, it was very beautiful. I need to find it and.
I mean, they know what they're
rememorize
doing.
it.
They make you sleep with your rifle. We go to sleep with our rifle.
Wow.
We have to
There's
walk around
something
with our rifle.
prophetic about that.
If you're going
with my
to the bathroom, you're going to the restroom, you bring your rifle.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay.
Because they're
Now, what
vulnerable.
happens if we slept with our Bible with us, and we go everywhere with our Bible with us, and right. So they know the
That's good.
I'm teaching my daughter already that
brainwashing
way.
techniques
Yeah,
necessary.
Eliana has to learn this song. The Bible is God's word. Anyway, so
Yeah.
Take it wherever you go.
boom, boom.
Aw.
And
Anyhow,
she sings it so cute.
yeah. So,
So,
you're learning.
redemption time.
Right. So, yeah, Marine Corps, right? So there's all these, like, remember, I'm still struggling with identity.
Yeah.
So, and the Marine Corps, they know how to psychologically break you down and build you back up with their ethos, with their values, right? So honor, courage, commitment, right? I mean, I ate that up. I was the best Marine. I was meritoriously promoted to Lance Corporal, Corporal, and Sergeant. So what that means is, instead of waiting to be promoted and gain rank by time and service, it was meritoriously given to me through acts of service, or I would compete with other Marines in my unit for it. And so it pumped me up, because Marines can be very prideful. So it filled me with a sense of pride that is not necessarily healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, it taught me. It was the opportunity to know what was inside of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I ran multiple Marine Corps marathons. I was a great runner. Didn't know that about myself.
Wow.
I had leadership skills. I liked discipling. That all came out in the Marine Corps. So again, best and the worst experience. But again, the anger is almost applauded and all of that. So, and I already have
Wow.
a very unhealthy example of anger in the household. And so all of that sort of like perpetuated me having issues with anger.
Wow.
And so I've got all that going on. My term comes up. I go back to Chicago, and my best friend and I, we roommate, we get an apartment together, and we start drinking together, and we had never done that before. We start going to Wicker Park. Wicker Park is this area in Chicago where there's like lots of bars and everything. And we're just out and we're just partying till like 2 a.m.
Wow.
And we come back to one of my friends, another friend's apartment, and I'm crying and crying and crying. I can't stop crying. It was a crying like from the bellows of my soul crying. And I remember my friends, again, we're all like just inebriated, and they're like, Vanessa, please stop crying, and I'm just like, and we're just all crying over our woes. And I wake up with a hernia. That's how hard I was crying, a hernia in my stomach. And so it's like popping out. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this, guys? Oh my gosh. And because it was like multiple, it was like I'm dehydrated. I'm also crying so much, and it puts so much pressure on this area near my umbilical. It's called an umbilical cord hernia. And so I end up having to go to the hospital. I'm in the hospital, and they're looking at it, and they're like, okay, no surgery is needed. We're just going to kind of pop it. But it entailed me having to rest and sit still for a number of days. And this is when the Holy Spirit came to me.
Shows up. Come on.
All of a sudden, in that moment, there was a very strong urgency came over me to find God.
Wow.
It was like if Tinkerbell came and just went, and all of a sudden I was like, ding.
Pixie dust.
Yeah, and I was like,
Holy Spirit dust.
oh, I need God. That's all I remember. I was like, I need God.
Wow.
Nobody came to me. No evangelist came. It was the Holy Spirit himself that came and drew me. It was like a longing in my heart just opened up. And I was like, I need to find God. So the moment I was released from the hospital, I start going on this journey of trying to find God. And so I go to what I know is familiar, and I start going to mass. And I remember looking at my sister, and I was like, man, this is where I'm at, where I'm like so hungry. I'm like, man, are you learning anything? I remember looking, I was like, no, I'm doing the kneeling. I'm doing all of this, I'm dipping, I'm doing all the things. And I'm like, I'm not learning anything. I don't understand anything. I was getting frustrated. I'm working at the DOD. Okay, so full circle now, coming back.
right.
I'm working at the DOD. There's a Mormon. She's like, oh, you're an investigator. It was something. It was a term, strange term like that she used. She was like, you should come to church with me. I'm like, okay. So I start going to mass and then temple. Mass and then temple. I think it's called temple. So I'm not, I don't know the verbiage, right? But it was enough for me to be wearing skirts, going to her services, and then visiting her family in Utah, and
Oh, snap.
and like falling in love with the culture of Mormonism, and
Very
and
family-centric.
family,
Yeah.
family centric, and the beauty. I mean, the father would, before we started our day, we all kneel down, we would pray together.
Wow.
And so it was like the goal was, let me know when you want to get baptized. Let me know when you want to get okay. So back and forth. Then one day, I go to the Hip. And the Hip
mall.
is the Harlem and Irving Plaza Mall. It's that mall in your town that when you go to, you will bump into somebody you know.
Yes.
Okay. It is one of those malls. So I bump into a guy friend from high school. He's like, oh, you going to church? You should come to my church. And I was like, okay, I mean, I'm going to 16 other churches. Why not? So I get into my huge truck, and I remember it was like in Schaumburg. And this is like, and I felt like, and it was an hour away or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a long drive.
West suburbs.
Yeah. And I'm thinking on the way there, I'm like, man, I'm doing all of this. And what if God is not even real? I remember thinking that.
Wow.
Because I was like, what am I doing? And so I get there, and this place was like, what is happening? Okay. In my mind, people were doing cartwheels and jumping off the walls, right? Mass is very chill. Okay?
Nobody's moving.
Mormon service, we chill, we sing the hymns. Okay. We break bread, we commune. Okay. This place was like, yes. Okay. And I was like, judging them hardcore. I'm like, what is happening? I don't even remember anything the pastor said.
Oh, wow.
All I remember is at the end of this service, a woman comes up to me and she's like, hi. Oh, I just feel your pain.
Whoa.
And then she starts telling me everything about my life.
And she don't know you.
She does not know me.
Start prophesying.
She starts speaking over me things that nobody on this earth I thought knew. She says, yeah, I feel your pain. God is going to use you to heal people. And again, this is verbiage that I just am like, well, I don't understand what this means. But what I do remember clearly was like, and the Lord knows that you question his existence, and he wants you to know this is the way, and he is real. And I was like,
He read your mail.
and again, I'm like, okay, thanks, bye. I leave. My friend comes, hey, runs up to me. Hey, what'd you think about the service? I said, how dare you? How dare you tell this woman my business? What you talking about? She's regarded as a prophet in our church. I'm like, is this the medieval times? Is this the medieval times? Like, because a prophet who I've never heard of that. What is that? Okay. And I get back. I'm furious. I get back into my truck. I start driving back, and I'm feeling like, man, what was this guy trying to? What a fraud! He's trying to scam me into going to his church. Like, what's going on here? Especially because his pastor was like, well, I need to meet with her because Mormonism and all of this, right? And I was like, man, and I'm just driving. I'm just livid. I'm hot, and I'm like, wait a second. I thought, what if God existed? That nobody
didn't
could know my
that.
thoughts
Yes.
beside God.
Because you didn't share that with him.
I didn't share it with him.
He just.
I thought that.
Knew a
I didn't
little bit
say
about
that.
I didn't say that. I thought that. And I was like, again, ding.
Download.
It was like, oh, snap. God. This was like God. Like, who else could possibly know my thoughts?
Wow.
Get home, my sister's like, hey, I got invited to the church down the street. Another invitation to, okay, this is the church that I
met
just
you
down
at.
the street. Yes. And I'm like, well, again, I'm going to 26 other churches. Why not
One more.
go there? This is January of 2007. January 2007. And I heard the gospel for the first time. Clear as day. I understood that I had sins and that those sins could be forgiven by one man only, the Son of God. I remember the setup. The setup was, if you're ready to start living for God this year, I want you to raise your hand. I'm like, of course we do. And it was like me and like 4 other people. And I'm thinking, y'all, we're in church. Like, what's going on? Don't you want to live for God? I didn't know it was the holy setup, right? It was like a trick. And they're like, okay, well, y'all who raised your hands, we want to invite you to come up. And I was like, oh, what? And my sister looks at me, she's like, I'll go with you. And I was like, okay. So we go up there and, you know, the pastor, Pastor Daniel Cruz, leads us through like, hey, do you recognize like DBR, the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ? And I was like, I do, yes. And the moment I said yes, I felt a heaviness, a burden lift from me that I was weeping at the altar. I'm talking weeping.
Hallelujah.
All over my face. I felt light. I felt fresh. I felt like out of the darkness, I had come into the light. And I remember knowing this is it. I'm giving my life entirely over to the Lord for whatever he wants to do. Because
this is it.
This is it.
Jesus.
Yes. And it was very Paul-like. It was very like, hey, I'm doing my own thing. I got my own plans, my own goals. And then Jesus was like, bam.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he's like, oh, okay, Lord. And that same ambition and passion and drive just transferred over to kingdom work, to bring God glory.
Yeah.
Wow. And how old were you when you got saved?
I was 23 turning 24.
So this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wait, no.
Probably.
20.
I mean, that was 2007.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Jesus.
God is good.
So after that, you meet your husband.
Yep. So I felt very strongly to serve with youth.
Yep.
And that's when I met my husband, and we started doing skits together, and the youth pastor there didn't know what he was doing, and he assigned us together to put some skits together, and it was too early though. It was too early for me. I had just been saved.
Fresh.
And it was fresh, and then there's a whole story there of having to wait and not waiting and feeling the consequences of like not waiting to date until the right timing, because God was still doing a work within me, and so we had to submit to our pastors that we loved, and it wasn't just our pastors. We knew it was the Lord himself who was putting us on a timetable to wait to get to know each other some more.
God is wise.
Yeah, and so we did that, and we did that until we got the blessings from the pastor to go ahead and move forward and get engaged. That was a whole story in and of itself, because I was like, man, you out here telling me I'm 24 years old. I was a Marine, and you're gonna tell me I can't be like
dating?
Yeah, it was strange to me.
Like, what is this discipleship?
Right. But I understood submission though.
Right.
Because you were military.
Right.
So you're like, so in the church, you guys can guide me too?
Right. And there's different authorities, and so I learned all that, and I quickly understood.
And there are healthy ways to do that and unhealthy ways.
Oh yeah.
And so,
we know that.
You know what Melody and I like to do is submit things back to people. We make suggestions based on biblical wisdom and help them wrestle with how they want to decide for themselves. Now, the power of the blessing, I don't know if we taught this, but I taught my daughter, Maria, my eldest daughter, my adopted daughter, the power and the purpose of the blessing, and that's something that I could withhold or give when it's the right time. And if you understand and recognize the value and the weight of that, so that's something I could utilize to bless and send, or to hold back and say, I'm not sure about that. But everything else, as far as like helping them make decisions and stuff, there's a healthy way to do that. There's an unhealthy way to do that, where you exert a level of control, and when you're doing this with people, like, you're not in a system of like military and government. I mean, you could leave, but you'd be AWOL and then, dishonorably discharged. There's some consequences. In the church, I guess there's similar consequences. I can kick you out the church and stuff, but there's a right way and a healthy way to do that. So just for the viewers, when you're hearing this kind of talk, it sounds like in that season it was very good for you. There was some guidance and some wisdom as the reason why you should wait, and you understood submission and recognized the wisdom behind it and did that, and then it
100%.
worked out wonderfully for you.
Yeah, that's not to say that there aren't scenarios where there's spiritual abuse, and that power and authority is misused, or there's a manipulation. I mean, we know that church hurt and spiritual abuse is very prevalent. Yeah. So, but in this case, they were only confirming what we were already sensing from the Lord,
which is what godly authority and prophetic words should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Confirming already.
Should be confirming what God is already doing in your heart.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you ever get something out of the blue, you either need to pray about it and receive it from the Lord for yourself,
right,
or put that on the Holy Ghost shelf and be like, well, I don't really bear witness to that. So,
amen. Everything Vanessa shared was just so powerful, so beautiful.
Man, so deep.
But we'll have to put a pause, because there's so much more we want to give.
Yeah.
And so stay tuned, guys, for part 2. It's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good. We're gonna dive into healing, somatic therapy, just how God can actually instigate and take us through, and how he's using it all, because he's designed it and he's desiring for us to be free.
Yes. So you guys, thank you for listening. Share this episode with others. Make sure that you turn on your notifications so you can get this next episode. If you want to support, you want to partner with us, go to cdandmelody.com, click donate, give. You are giving so that we can continue these types of podcasts where we keep it real,
biblical and honest.
And honest.
That's right.
God bless you guys. Stay tuned for part 2.
Peace.